I'd quite like to look at a subject which perhaps is a little delicate, and maybe I would get into trouble for even broaching this subject. But there's the recent spectacle of Rachel Reeves crying in Westminster. Uh, it provokes as much fascination as unease. The tears of the Chancellor of the Exchequer in the House of Commons. And we have to ask a serious question. Does a public display of vulnerability like that in so unforgiving an arena as Parliament make her unsackable? Or does it merely postpone the inevitable reckoning for her and for the government that she serves? Rachel Reeves' tears at Prime Minister's questions were not subtle. The camera caught them unflinchingly, and the Chancellor, shaken by what she described as a personal issue, wept on the Treasury bench as the pound slid and bond markets wobbled just as much as her lips were wobbling. It was undeniably human. Keir Starmer immediately rallied behind her, telling the public that Reeves should remain or would remain Chancellor for many years to come. Labour MPs lined up to offer sympathetic sound bites. Lisa Nandy framed it as proof that politicians are human beings, juggling impossible demands. But behind the outpouring of sympathy, there was unease, even anger. A government source was blunt. Rachel Reeves' tears had shored up her position precisely because they made it politically costly for Starmer to sack her. Images of a tearful Chancellor dismissed days later would have been mercilessly weaponised by Labour's own MPs as well as the opposition. Let's be clear about the context. Reeves had just overseen a humiliating U-turn on welfare cuts, forced by a rebellion of Labour MPs. Her plans left a £5 billion hole in the budget. The markets responded badly. Sterling tumbled. Gilt yields jumped. Reeves faces an autumn budget with limited room to manoeuvre. She's promised no rises in the big three taxes, income tax, VAT, and national insurance, while feeding the need to find billions. In other words, the tears flowed at a moment of maximum political vulnerability. Reeves was not under fire. She was under fire not only from the Tories, but from Labour's own left, and even from centrist colleagues who feared she'd become too beholden to Treasury orthodoxy. And against that backdrop, Starmer's unequivocal support looked less like loyalty and more like political necessity. Crying is a powerful signal. Studies of emotional tears suggest they are a uniquely human form of communication, evolved to evoke empathy, to solicit help, to blind us socially, and to bind us. In politics, tears are a double-edged sword. Winston Churchill was famous for welling up in public and was admired for it. Margaret Thatcher's tears as she left Downing Street provoked complex reactions, part pity, part scorn. But Reeves' moment was different. This was not the exit scene of a fallen leader, but a public meltdown in the middle of active policy failure. And the question is whether Reeves' tears humanized her, made her seem relatable, or whether they revealed a dangerous fragility in the person responsible for the nation's finances. Certainly the optics protect her in the short term. Starmer, already weakened by internal rebellions, could hardly fire a crying Chancellor without appearing brutal. But he also risked making Labour look chaotic, unprepared, emotionally volatile, at the very moment when it's supposed to reassure markets and the electorate. And of course, people would say, if Rachel Reeves is crying, what about our tears? So, has Rachel Reeves made herself unsackable? For now, I think the answer has to be yes. Starmer has lashed himself to her mast. He cannot be seen to punish her for an episode of human frailty, especially given the gendered overtones that would provoke accusations of sexism. But sackable, unsackable forever? Hardly. Political loyalty is a shifting currency, and if the autumn budget goes badly, if she is forced to break Labour's tax pledges, if market confidence collapses further, Starmer will face renewed pressure to replace her, and her tears may have bought her time, but they've not erased the fundamental problem. The Chancellor is boxed in with diminishing options, and a public increasingly convinced Labour will have to raise taxes despite its promises. Moreover, the incident has sharpened contrasts within the cabinet. Angela Rayner emerges from the welfare climb down with her authority enhanced, seen as the broker of the compromise that saved the government, whereas Streeting looks strong on NHS reform. Reeves, by contrast, looks weakened, reliant on personal loyalty rather than policy success to keep her post. And that assurance of personal loyalty from the sitting Prime Minister is generally seen as the kiss of death. So does crying in the Commons make Rachel Reeves unsackable? I keep asking this question. In the short term, yes. Emotion elicited empathy, and the politics of decency demanded that Starmer stand by her. But in politics, sympathy is fleeting. If Reeves cannot deliver a credible economic plan, if the markets rebel again, or if Labour's internal critics sense an opportunity, those tears will no longer protect her. I suspect the way out will be quite clear, that she will elect to go. And that sacking, in whatever form it happens, may be sooner rather than later. Those tears may come to symbolize not her humanity, but the government's failure to project competence in its most vital duty to manage the nation's economy. In that sense, Rachel Reeves' tears are both her shield and her warning, a reminder that in Westminster, compassion doesn't last long, and accountability, however delayed, is rarely denied.